Congratulations on this album. It's an absolutely fantastic album. So congratulations.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
So
We are really proud of it as well.
so there's something special about this album. When I was listening to it, I found that it was a mix of beauty and aggression in such a
Yeah.
beautiful way. Tell us a little bit about what you guys actually set out to achieve with this album.
I know we set out to achieve, in a sense, a natural continuation of our debut album, York. Um, in some sense, we feel, or at least that's how I feel when I listen to it afterwards, is if you imagine the debut album being like this halfly unfolded flower, this is like full spring. So there's a lot of sounds that I think to imagine at Anfarm Studios in collaboration with him kind of unfolded what at least the key elements or the key parts of what makes our sound, what makes up our sound. So I think there's a lot of way more noise, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I know Nikolai. He comes from bands like Sonic Youth and a lot of like noise rock bands and a whole other genre than metal in particular. And I know we all listen to a lot of alternative music as well. So it's just. Yeah, it's nice to see that melting pot thing getting going, and I think we have, at least with this record, kind of pinpointed a lot of different directions that somehow coherently point one way, but has a bit of detours. We come from well, obviously we can't say that we're not fans of a lot of other great bands, but there's just not that much bias to do we play black metal, do we play indie rock, do we play whatever type of genre that you can put on. I think that's one of the things that I like a lot of about a lot of records coming out, or at least artists trying out a lot of things. Like take a band for like Seal and Arda mixes a lot of blues rock into the mix, and Turnstile doing really happy punk things.
Yeah.
It's just, I think I really like how there's just no restrictions in some sense, or a gatekeeping to how you wanna do things. Of course, there will be responses that you might like and I might not like. People have different kinds of tastes, but at least I think we try to achieve a sense of pushing boundaries from what you can do within the two main genres that we actually do get put in between.
Aside from genres, did you feel that there were any themes coming through on this album? Was there anything? I mean, we've been living in a crazy world for the last couple of years. Did you feel that there was anything coming through from that with the album as well?
Like lyrically?
Yeah, yep.
Or, yeah. Like thematically, I feel this one relates. Well, Your was mostly about existentialism, like what are we here for? I see that part. When I write stuff, I see periods of my life. When I look at stuff that I've written before, I see like different sections, and I think Your really had a lot to do with kind of like a midlife crisis, or at least a lot of the things that I needed to reevaluate upon. Where do we end up? Do we end up in the earth? Do we go somewhere else? What the fuck? But is, I think, thematically a continuation of that. You know, when you lose sense of purpose in some sense, what do you end up with? We end up with each other, for better and for worse. I don't know if you know, we all have like family members that, you know, have had really extreme or, you know, anxious or fearful responses to what's going on in the world right now. We all tend to react differently when crisis, you know, screams in our faces, and I feel there's a lot of that urgency coming through in this album. But at the same time, you know, you can still find some kind of stillness, or at least a moment of contemplation during all that.
Yeah.
I think it's no joke when people, at least I hear authors and people talking about the last couple of years as the great pause. You know, a place of quiet reflection, or, you know, walk on the street and say, you know, I don't know what to do with my life.
There's some pretty deep topics that you explored there. Do you find writing lyrics cathartic? Like, these are the kinds of things that would keep you awake of a nighttime if you didn't put them down on paper in a song?
I think for some sense, like, there is an element of that to most of what I write. I think, but I'm also pretty inspired by movies, and like cultural products. I think that comes through a lot of our music videos, that we are like great film buffs. Yeah, I think at least the Danish, the songs with Danish lyrics, that those come across for me as some of the more personal ones. I think I'm more okay with a couple of million here in Denmark knowing what's going on, and leaving the rest of the world in a place of, you know, exotic obscurity.
Now, you're talking to someone here who hosts a film show called The Popcorn Conspiracy, so I have to ask, what films inspire you, and what kind of films were you watching leading into this album?
Well, you know, Diorama is a 3D representation of a scene, so I am pretty... well, the concept of this album was really pretty much built around Hereditary by Ari Aster.
Yep.
So the way that the main protagonist, she, you know, dives into her traumas, you know, or tries to, you know, depict the most traumatic events in her life in a miniature form, that kind of resonated something within me. You know, there's a sense of losing yourself, or in her, you know, I would say in her case, a really unhealthy way of trying to, you know, make art of something really horrible. Things that are happening around her. That kind of, I think, I'd say the emotional narrative that goes through all of the tracks in Diorama kind of tries to encapsulate the process of, you know, confrontation with the issues that you have with either your loved ones, or with how people in the world see you, and or at least things that have happened to you in the past, things that you might not be really fond of other people hearing or talking about, and then in the end kind of finding some sense of closure. So I think you can feel like the final battle going on in the track Twissen, and then the epilogue in the final track. So I think we kind of build that cinematic feel into the album. So, you know, the singles can be heard, you know, individually, but I think we're all just really fans of the album format, and how you can also listen to it on vinyl. So it's pretty much built for that. But yeah, Hereditary. That's a pretty key inspiration right there. I really like how you when you're confronted with trauma, you have either got to work through it and trying to find a way to live with it, or you can just keep on ignoring it and make that great dino grow bigger in the corner of your room.
There might be a lot of people out there that listen to this album that really resonate with that as well, that have been through trauma themselves. Are you kind of ready for people to reach out to you and talk to you about their own experiences after listening to this album?
I think I've always been kind of ready for that, but there's a difference between me, thinking something, having experiences, and putting it into art, and then another thing for people interpreting it, receiving it and making it their own. I think that's the beauty of music and culture in general. Like we can all have had like thoughts of how we wanted people to receive it, but in the end, they're taking it and making it for themselves. So being respectful about that, being respectful about how you go about talking with people. This is the only band that I've played in where people come up to the merch stand, some are literally crying and touched by a lot of the things, the emotional outlet that this taps into. And I feel there's a great sense of at least respect, or in some sense a resonating feeling of togetherness, or at least a way of connecting to total strangers that I really like.
Now, talking about live shows, we're just coming out of lockdown here in Melbourne, one of the longest lockdowns that the world's been through. What's it like for you there now? Are you going to be able to get out soon and do some shows as well?
We are already doing it.
Wow.
In Denmark, the vaccine rollout has been pretty effective, and I think over 80% of the population have already been vaccinated. So, we have no restrictions whatsoever at the minute. So we were able to play our first live show a couple of weeks back at Copenhagen Metal Fest, and it was just amazing to be, stepping on top of people into a crowd and just moshing again. So I'm pretty hopeful, but at the same time, I know there was a point at least half a year ago where I was trying to emotionally prepare myself to tell my grandkids, there was a time when I was able to stage dive and stuff, but that was a different time.
Did those thoughts also encourage you to write? Is that something that we can expect to hear on the next album? Your thoughts about what you were going through during the pandemic?
Well, I think especially when talking about how this affects people and people around you. I have people in my family that are that believe COVID is a hoax, and it is so frustrating. But at the same time, you kind of get down to some really ethical, everyday ethical situations where you have to kind of focus on, I'm not going to convince this person. Let's focus on what can bring us together. We're family. How is your day? The really basic things, and then whatever place that you're in, or where you find your information, or if you're fearful, if you're scared, there's always I think there's a way of kind of trying to reach into the really fundamental things of what makes us human, that can, at least make you know that, you are not going anywhere, even though that they might feel pulled away from, or at least feeling, what's it called, marginalized by a lot of people. Yeah. So, probably there will be a lot of reasons to talk about, how are we to each other, how do we affect each other, and how do we, continue on this journey together. Even though that your neighbor might vote really differently than you do, you still take out the trash, you still do your laundry, you still, do a lot of the same things, and connect with a lot of, the same feelings as well. So that's one of the things that I like about this music. It just brings people together, and that's what it is supposed to do, in my opinion, at least.
Definitely. Well, mate, I know we're running out of time very, very quickly. So to finish up, I just want to say again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us tonight. And is there anything you would like to say to our listeners out there before they get a chance to sit down and listen to the album for the first time?
I think, one thing I would encourage people to is to listen to the whole album, from start to finish, to get, reserve space for it. If you have a minute, all right, you might get hooked by one song, but we've all had, suddenly a lot of people have had a lot of time to, either think upon their life or, reserve space for whatever you like. And I think the same things goes with our album, or at least with a lot of the contemporary art that we surround ourselves with. So yeah, give it space, and feel free to send us a message on how much you like or dislike it.